All right, let's review just a little bit what we were looking at before the breaks. Okay, there are different types of works. We have what? I mean, you could read off the board if you wanted to. Maintenance. Really, we should put preventative maintenance first because that's the lowest level of maintenance, and pilots can do that on their own plane. So, you know, if an idiot pilot can do it, how hard could it be, right? Then we come up with maintenance, but I have it backwards. Then we have repairs, alterations, major repairs, major alterations, and inspections. All right, so if you want to know if something is a repair is something that is not a major repair. And I want to know what a major repair is. Where do I go?
FAR 43.
FAR 43 Appendix A. It's going to give me a list, right? And it's any work done on any of the items shown that is not done by elementary procedures and is done such as welding, riveting, or such as that would be a major repair. Major alterations is anything that is really not listed on the type certificate data sheets. Now we get into inspections. So, nice thing about aircraft is they have required inspections. And there are, as I'm looking at my notes, I realize mostly I focused in on smaller aircraft. Larger aircraft have phase inspections instead of an annual inspection. So I don't mean to say like, you know, the 737 or 777 you might have flown on in your last vacation is due for an annual inspection. They don't do annual inspections on large airplanes. They do different phase inspections. Even corporate jets, they don't do annual inspections. You have your phase. So at certain calendar intervals or certain hour intervals, you bring them in for a phase inspection. And depending on how many hours is what phase you'll do. But for the most part, if we want to keep it simple, let's talk about general aviation for now. We can say there are several different types of inspections. They can be done by hours. So, for example, you may have a 25-hour inspection or a 50 or a 75 or 100-hour inspection, 500-hour inspection, as called for by the manufacturer. The FAA focuses in on 100-hour inspections. We can do by hours, or we could, what am I saying here? Yeah, we'll skip that one. By hours or by calendar. Almost or all general aviation aircraft, they have annual inspections.
And so by hours, they mean the is it like an hour indicator on the plane?
Well, technically, nope. Nah. Technically, according to the FARs, it is flight time. So you need a 100-hour inspection. Let's say you spend 99 hours driving around on the airport and the wheels never left the ground, and you flew 1 hour. How many hours does the plane have? 1 hour. So yeah, but how do we keep track of these hours? On small aircraft, single engine, typically non-retractable aircraft, they do it by the tachometer. And the tachometer only reads accurate at higher power settings. So it doesn't really roll over like an odometer. So when your engine's going slow, that doesn't read accurate. Depends. If you have your own airplane, you will use the tachometer. If you are renting an airplane, use what's called a Hobbs meter. And a Hobbs meter is connected to the battery and the oil pressure, or sometimes just the battery. So as soon as you turn on the master switch and the battery in the aircraft comes on, the Hobbs meter starts going. That's how you rent them. So you rent them by the Hobbs meter and maintain them by the tachometer. So.
And the tachometer will chalk up the hours. And so like a TBO on an engine would be the same. It's referenced flying hours, not...
Technically, yes.
Okay.
All right. So who can do what now? This is where we want to go to. Now we kind of understand some of this stuff. Oh, this is calendar topic with this. We have phase inspections, larger airplanes. So make that C, phase inspections. 2, who can do what? Who can do what? So, as an A and P, as an A and P, you may perform or supervise. So perform, supervise, doesn't matter if you're doing it. So technically, anything I can do, you can do, as long as I stand on top of you and watch you. So the FAA had the word supervise has gotten a little out of control. And when I was zooming stuff, people are working on aircraft going, yeah, I'm not an A&P, but I'm supervised. Oh, who supervised you? Well, my A&P. Where's your A&P? Florida. Well, how is your A&P supervising you in Florida if you're in California? Zoom. And the FAA came out a couple months ago and said, okay, we're going to define, one person did, we're going to define this as supervision means watching with the ability to take over at a moment's notice. And everybody lost their freaking mind. And it was a big deal. And a few weeks later, the FAA came out and said, okay, we rescind that. The person who wrote that we rescind it. So right now it's sort of ill-defined as to what supervise means. Does it mean readily available by a phone, by Zoom? I don't know. FAA doesn't know, and they're afraid to say. Okay, so you can do this as an A&P, all of the above. You can do maintenance. You can do the preventative maintenance because it's easier. You can do alterations. You can do repairs. Oops, we should do this. And return to service. There, I like that better. You can perform, supervise, and return to service. I'm going to make that note. Now it makes more sense to me. So you can do all that as an A&P, all by yourself. Sound easy? Okay. Let me think. Let me change this up a little bit. You may perform but not return to service let's perform. That did not come out right. Not return to service means you can do it, but you cannot return to service. A major alteration or a major repair. Can do it, but cannot return it to service. Sounds kind of weird. Let me think. You may perform and return to service up to a 100-hour inspection. Remember, the FAA only acknowledges the 100-hour. Well, a manufacturer may say a 500-hour, but a 500-hour is just 5 100-hours. So you do a 100-hour, then you do the next one, you do the next one, you do the next one, you get to the 5th one, they go, and you should do this too. So the FAA considers a 500-hour inspection. So you can perform a return to service up to 100-hour, or I could just say 100-hour inspection. But that includes the 25, the 50, because they're very small. They're usually just 50-hour inspection, 25, it's just oil change. So you can do that.
Hey, Kevin.
Yeah.
Do you have your IA for the other inspections?
We're not going to get to that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You may not perform. May not perform or return to service major alterations or major repairs to props. Cusco says no touchy. Any repairs, alterations to instruments. Instruments are anything in the cockpit that's an instrument, which is a compass, airspeed, altimeter, whatever else is in there, who knows. Directional gyro. Attitude, that's the word I was trying. Attitude indicator. The thing with the ball and stuff. Attitude indicator, thank you. You may not perform any task for which you do not have experience. Asterisk. Unless you what's the word I want? Demonstrate to the administrator so in other words, somebody down the ramp flies up with their 747 and said, hey, you should come out and change tire. Go out and I go out and change tire. I really don't have any experience changing a tire on a 747. I got the manual. Can I do it?
Nope.
Any task which you don't have the experience. Oh, I can't do it. Gotta have the experience. Oh, unless I can demonstrate them. So I say, I can't do it, but wait a minute. Let me call the local FAA. Hey, I want to change a tire. I've never done it before. Can you come down here and let me show you I know how to do it? And they're going to say, no. But you can demonstrate the administrator you know how to do it, and they'll be fine. Unless you demonstrate the administrator, you can. Okay, nobody's going to do that. You cannot perform or return to service any task for which you do not have current and correct manual. I will give you a little side note here on what is current. And this is a weird thing, and I have an entire folder on my computer to prove this because somebody told me this, and I said, "You're full of crap," and it wasn't. And so I researched it. So I have a 1977 Cessna 182, as you will hear me talk about far too often. Sorry about that, but it's the airplane that comes to mind. So, what is the current manual for my 1977 Cessna aircraft? Is it the one that Cessna just produced? Or is it the one that Cessna came up with in 1977 and said, hey, here's your new plane and the manual? It's that one. It's the one that came off the factory with. Is considered the current manual. Now, So I want to say current. It's considered an appropriate manual, but the latest and greatest would be the best. So when you argue this point, you don't ever want to be on the arguing point with the FAA of this one. So if they came to the shop and said, "Oh, I see you're working on this Cessna here. What manual you got?" And I'm like, "The one that came out in '77, man." Like, there's been like 50 revisions, right? I know, but don't care. That's not a good answer. So you could try and argue, and I could pull out my folder of stuff and say, "Look, I can prove to you that I don't need the latest and greatest manual." And they might look at it and go, "Well, okay, that's technically true. Are you sure that's what you want to be doing?" And I would say, "No, it's not what I want to be doing." So you should be using the latest one. Now, if you have a repair station, so I'll talk a little more about repair stations. Well, it's set up in a second or two, but a repair station is basically a business that has an AMP/inspection authorization. So the FAA has come into the business and said, and you've wrote a repair station manual, your operating specifications. It talks about the leadership, the training you're going to have, how you keep track of parts, what you can work on, what you're not going to work on. The great thing about a repair station is you can do anything in the world you can dream of if the FAA will sign off on it. I mean, things that aren't even, things that this says you shall not. If you can get the FAA to do it, you now can. Manuals that say you can't ever, if the FAA signs off, you can. So it's fantastic. But the flip side of that is, as an AMP, I have an unlimited certificate, really. As long as I get the experience, I can do it. So if we're going to work on getting my company a repair station, and so at some point we'll do it, and we'll have to have a limit to what we can work on. It'll actually limit it. The company I worked for before, we overhauled engines, said we could overhaul any engine up to and including 450 horsepower. Now, as an AMP, I can work on technically any engine at any horsepower, but our repair station was stuck at 450 or less. But like I told you before, we got approval to overhaul rocker arms. Nobody else did. We can do all kinds of stuff. You get the FAA to sign off on it, you can do it. So there's good and there's bad. But most importantly, I think repair station means legitimacy. And in your operating specifications, you have to talk about what manuals you're going to use. And for the most part, I've never seen an exception to this. If you would write in your repair station operating specifications, and we shall use a manual that is at least as old as the aircraft, or is no older than the aircraft we're working on, they would say, "Yeah, why don't you just take this back to your desk and why don't you try again with that one?" And you're going to keep writing it until you have a statement that says, "We shall use in the repair station the most current manual available by the manufacturer." And then the FAA will go, "Yeah, that's what we wanted to see." So when you work for a repair station that has a repair station certificate, you will be using the most current manual available.
So why the discrepancy again? The current one is what came with the plane when it was manufactured.
Yes.
Versus the revised one, which is what you're supposed to use. Why is that discrepancy?
Well, as an AMP, I'm allowed to use the one it came out with in the factory. But when you're a repair station, the FAA can hold you to a higher standard, because you sit down with them nearly one-on-one and you write this manual on how you're going to perform maintenance. And that inspector has guidance, and in their guidance it says, hey, get them to write that they're going to put the best manual possible. And so they hold you to that standard. And if you want the repair station license, then you have to do it. Again, a repair station license is a license to the business. I have a business that maintains aircraft. We do not have a repair station license. If you have a repair station license, you're under Part 145, and you have a number. So it's a certified repair station number, such and such. Otherwise, you're just a shop operating under my certificates, my AMP, So you even sign it off different. So if I had a repair station, I could hire you tomorrow and say you're an inspector, and you can sign off everything in the shop. I can do that. There's repair stations, I won't name names, but good repair stations. They've hired some of my better students who maybe don't have the manipulative skills, but man, do they got it up here. And they make them inspectors.
So the certification is an umbrella certification at that point.
So to speak, yeah.
Okay.
In fact, you don't use your AMP. They want you to have one, but you never use it. Keep it, show them you got it. That's good. Everything you sign off is under repair station number. All right, so you can't do anything. You don't have the current manuals. What do we got? You cannot perform. Oh, you cannot return to service. I think I already said that. Did I say that? No. Not return. Yes, I did. Return to service, major alterations. Okay, I already said that. All right. So we don't have to say that twice. All right. Now, once you've been an A&P for a minimum of 3 years and have worked a minimum of 2 of those 3, and where do you think I'm getting this information out of?
FAR.
Boom, FARs. 65.91 to be exact. You can become or hold an inspection authorization. It's an add-on to your license. If you worked for a repair station, you would have no need for this because a repair station kind of comes with its own IA. It's part of it. But, so this is an A&P that has authority to perform and or sign off. Ooh, I should be careful. I write that one. Perform and sign off. That's better. Annual inspections. So what is an annual inspection? What does that entail? Well, if I wanted to know what an annual inspection is, because it's required under Part 91, what's Part 91? General Operating Flight Rules, Pilot and Command. They're going to look, before I fly this airplane, does it have a current annual inspection? It says that in Part 91. Got to have an annual inspection. So go to the A&P, IA. Hey, it says here I got to have an annual inspection. The A&P goes, I don't know what the hell that is. That would never happen. So A&P's got to, we got to have a standard. What is an annual inspection? Well, the good folks at the FAA said we should tell you what an annual inspection is. So it's FAR Part 43, Appendix Delta. Scope and detail of an annual inspection. Let me see. Actually, it has another word in there. FAR 43. Appendix D. Scope and detail of items as applicable to the particular aircraft to be included in the annual and 100-hour inspection. So, remember 100 hours way up here? You may perform a return to service up to a 100-hour inspection. Where would I find all the things I have to look for a 100-hour inspection? 43 Appendix D. Wait a minute, that's 43 Appendix D for a 100-hour. And this one's 43 Appendix D for a
Annual.
So what's the difference between an annual and a 100-hour inspection?
Is it just
Technically the same thing.
They're the same damn thing. So, that's why I told you, this can be confusing. But you hear it enough, you'll get to understand it. So I fly my aircraft under Part 91. Part 91 is just general operating flight rules. It means it's not for hire, not for business. I'm not an air taxi. I'm not an air carrier. It's me going out for an $800 hamburger. They used to call it a $100 hamburger. So, right? So I'm just out flying, doing my thing. Just a private individual. As a Part 91 operator, I do not have to do 100-hour inspections. I'm only required to do an annual inspection. So once a year, the airplane comes all apart, inspection covers, seats, carpet, everything comes out. Oil change, compression test, visualize all the control cables, lubricate, inspect, blah, blah, blah. All right, and then I put it back together and I'm good for another year. Well, what happens if I fly it 200 hours that year? Do I have to do 100 hour? Don't have to. Should I? Yeah, that'd be a good idea. But I don't have to. Law says I don't have to. All right, as opposed to a flight school. Now I got a flight school. They got their flight school airplanes. They're not flying, well, it's kind of Part 91, but because they're flying for hire, this airplane is now generating revenue. They must do 100-hour every 100 hours. So let's just say I got a flight school that flies 100 hours every single month, which I do. So January, they get a 100-hour. Well, we'll start with an annual. Annual inspection in January. Fly 100 hours. Now it's February. They get a 100-hour. March, 100-hour, 100-hour. I know, harder than I thought. Get all the way to the end, 100-hour. Come right back to January. Now they're due for a annual. And what's the difference between the two inspections? Nothing. Not one thing. So in fact, my flight school, I just sent one out. I've had it for a customer for almost a year. And I sent them out, and they have a little sheet that tells when the next annual's due. And she calls and says, I'm very confused because you did the annual in July, and now it's June, and you're telling me that the next annual is due in June of 2026. I'm like, yeah. She goes, what am I missing? You're missing the fact that I did the annual inspection a month early. Why did I do that? Just because I can. Same inspection. I could do an annual inspection on my airplane every single day if I wanted to. Yeah.
You just answered it.
Yeah. There's no limit to how often I can do a 100-hour inspection. So could I do an annual inspection for them every single month? Absolutely. It just looks silly. So, but I get them about a month early for their annual because they're in for 100 hours. So I just signed it off. Yeah.
No, you said the inspection has to be 100 hours?
Because they're flying for hire every 100 hours, they have to have a 100-hour inspection. They also have to have an annual inspection every year. They're the exact same inspections.
So how does that 100 hours in the air, I'm just confused, the 100-hour inspection, but it has to be 100 hours in the air?
Well, okay, so you are correct. It's 100 flight hours. Now on small airplanes, we just use the tachometer. If we didn't want to use the tachometer, which, by the way, remember, the tachometer doesn't read real accurate at low RPMs. It works higher RPMs, so it gets close. Larger aircraft or retractable gear aircraft will have an hour meter, something that starts when the gear comes up. That's how they know it's in the air. But if you don't have retractable gear, you just go by the tack. You'd have to have a ground proximity switch, which they can put on them, but it's just easier and cheaper just without having to add a bunch of equipment. Go, okay, we're going to go by the tack, and you go by the tack. There's weird. You'll get this later. There's weird rules about the 100-hour too. So they're very strict. You have to have a 100-hour inspection every 100 hours. What happens if you accidentally go 105 hours?
You're still okay, but you have to. I forgot the exact.
You can fly it
can
up
fly
to
for
10
it.
hours extra,
We
but
have
those 10 hours extra can only be used to get it to a shop, and you have to subtract those 10 hours from the next time. So now you'd have to do 90 hours. That's not. You don't need to know that. Okay, inspection. So you have to be an IA to do an annual inspection. So right. So this guy here, he's my AMP working in the shop, but I have the IA. I'm an APIA. So the plane comes in, due for 100 hour. He can do it. Comes in for 100 hour. He can do it. Or I can do it. Comes in for another 100 hour. Comes in for an annual. I'm up. Gotta be me. Why is that? Because I'm guaranteed at least one thing. I've probably got 2 more years experience than somebody who doesn't. So at least, well, I've been an AMP for at least 3 years. All right, so you can do the annual as an IA. What else we got? I can return to service. I can do it and return to service. Major alterations and major repairs. So I can remember before I said you guys as an AMP, you can do a major alteration and you can do a major repair, but you can't return to service. I can. And what does that mean? It means that I've had experience, training, and testing and reading regulations, determining what is approved data and what is not. And I must hold, let's see, must hold must hold AMTP for 3 years and be active at least 2 of those 3 years. Inspections can never be supervised. So if I said, hey, I got to do a 100-hour and, got some nice students in here. How'd you guys like to come do the 100-hour on my plane? And I'll supervise. Cannot happen. Cannot supervise inspections. You must be the one to do it. Whoever's signing it has to be the one doing it. All right, did I confuse you too much? All right, so as an A&P, you can do preventative maintenance, you can do maintenance, you can do repairs, you can do alterations, you can do major repairs, and you can do major alterations. But what about those majors? You can't sign them off. You have to come to me and say, I did this, can you sign it off? That's a simple way to say is you can't sign it off. You can't return it to service. If you actually did a major repair or major alteration, what you would do is you would write in the logbook, I repaired this aircraft in accordance with such and such and such, blah, blah. It's a major repair. So see FAA Form 337, which is how we record these, dated such and such, and you get to sign the logbook, which is weird, but that 337 has to be signed by an IA, which then returns it to service. All right. Then I talked about...
Is that common practice for like GA hangars to do that? Have like the AMPs do like major repairs, major alterations, and then just have like their IA guy come in and sign off on it? Or is that not common practice?
It's not uncommon, but from a practical standpoint, I'm sitting at the computer filling out the 337. If I put your name on it, they had to call you off the floor. Can you come to the office and sign this? But if I just put my name on it, I just put my name. If I was heavily involved in supervising it. Technically speaking, the FAA likes to see, like even on an annual inspection, you can't delegate the inspection, but I can delegate the work. So I need you to take the wheels and tires off, clean the wheel bearings, and lay them out for inspection. I look at them, go ahead and re-grease them and put them back on the airplane. So you're doing a lot of work, and the FAA likes to see when somebody else does work and somebody's supervising, the work performed by, and then put your name, and then I sign it as return to service. I don't tend to do that too much, but sometimes I do.
A quick clarification, this goes back a little bit, but at one point you referred to FAR Part 65 as 14 CFR Part 65.
Yes.
What's the 14, what's the difference?
Okay, so
Just quickly, sorry.
that's a good question. Back when I was in school, it was simply called FAR 65, 91, whatever. We just said FAR. And then somebody came out and said something like, well, FAR is actually kind of taken by the federal, it's like something else, and you guys kind of stole it, and it's not appropriate. So that is a colloquial way of saying it, so it's really not appropriate. If you want to be technically correct, it's 14 CFR. So FAR stands for the Federal Aviation Regulations. This is Title 14 of the Code of Federal Regulations. It's the same thing. It's proper versus colloquial or kind of.
So they refer to exactly the same thing.
It's exactly the same thing. There is no difference. I know, first time I'm like, 14 CFR, what the heck is this? And there was no Google to ask, and I had to figure it out. Okay, then we talked a little bit about repair stations. Repair stations. So if I want to open up a repair station, where am I going to go to find all about this?
FAR section.
Certified under 14 CFR, to write it properly, Part 147. No, I am not correct on that. 45.
Certified.
All right, remember if we go back up here, we said you may not perform or return to service major alterations and major repairs to props. Well, wait a minute. Who can do the prop thing?
Manufacturer?
Only a Part 145 or manufacturer. I'll put MFR, manufacturer. So the only place that can do any major repairs or alterations to prop is a certified Part 145 repair station. So we can come back to here, certified. So we can say can do major alteration or major repair to props. Now, I worked for a repair station. Does that mean we can do props? No, it wasn't on our certificate. You have to be a certified propeller repair station. And if you do find a company that's a certified propeller repair station, typically that's all they do. All right, let me see. Can work on instruments. Because back up here I said you may not do any repairs, alterations to instruments. So who can? Only 145 or manufacturer. So back down here, repair station. Well, they can do the work on the instruments that we talked about. Let's see. So in general, a repair station can do anything they're certified for and nothing they're not. So it's a weird thing.
So instruments would be defined as anything in the cockpit, like on the,
Yeah.
like including the clocks and stuff.
Yes.
Uh,
Yeah. Technically, yes. The clock would count. This only matters for certificated aircraft. I shouldn't use finger quotes because that's a word, certificated. What's a certificated aircraft? Cessna, Piper, Mooney, Beechcraft, your legacy aircraft, any certified aircraft that was factory built aircraft. This is all factory built aircraft rules. What if you build an airplane in your garage? Home built.
Experimental.
Experimental. So can you work on your prop?
If you want
Oh,
to.
hell yeah. Can you tear apart your instruments and put it back together? If you want to, go ahead. An experimental can do anything you want to do. There's only one thing that's required of an experimental, and that it has a condition inspection once a year. Not an annual, not a 100-hour, a condition inspection. Well, what's a condition inspection? It's an annual. So it's just an annual inspection. And who can do that annual inspection?
AMP.
An A&P. Don't have to be an IA. They just want somebody with some education to look over this aircraft to make sure it's not incredibly stupid. Right? Looking for some of the safety things. Like, hey, you shouldn't have a crack running through your spar.
So, someone who owns their own aircraft in the AMP can do their own?
No. Depends on the aircraft. Certified or home built?
The home build.
Home built? Did you build it?
Yeah.
Then you can do whatever you want because you're going to get a repairman. See, I'm not going to write this down because it's going to get way too confusing and I'm not going to hold you to this. Okay, so he builds a plane. And the FAA is going to come out and say, okay, you built this plane? You get a repairman certificate for your plane. So he's got to repair it. He can do whatever he wants. He can even do the condition inspection. Yeah, he can do the condition inspection. He's a repairman. He knows more about this plane than anybody else in the world, and the FAA says he built it. He's the expert. He can inspect it, he can change it, he can do whatever he wants. If he gets tired of the plane, he sells it to you, and you don't have an AP. Well, now you can't do much. Because, well, sorry, it's experimental. You can do whatever you want, but you can't do that condition inspection. Yeah.
Can you take the plane apart and then sell it to them?
No. Well, you can take it apart and sell it to them, but the FAA has to come out and you have to build a certain percent of it. Some of these rules I'm like, it doesn't matter because I'm an APIA. I can do whatever I want. So I forget them. Or don't know them as well as I probably should because they don't apply to me. But as APs, we do the condition inspection on experimentals, or we can work on them and fix them. So really, experimental comes into my shop, I'm going to treat it just like any certificated thing. I'm going to do the work in accordance with appropriate manuals. To the best of the ability, the manuals that are provided. If it's on the engine, I've certainly got manuals for engines. I'm going to do that. If the guy says, hey, I need you to do this as a prop, I'm only going to do to a propeller what I would do to a Cessna. I'm not going to do something. That's fine. You can do that. We don't mind if you take the prop apart. Yeah, I mind. I'm not going to do it. And then I'm going to write in the log books the exact same thing I would write if I would have worked on a Cessna. Yeah.
I know this sounds kind of silly, but experimental aircraft and certified aircraft, they both have airworthiness, so they both have to comply with it.
They both have airworthiness certificates. Yes. Yes. FAA issues an airworthiness certificate. But I think it's experimental certificate.
Like it's called experimental certificate?
I'm not even sure. Because now it starts to get even more in the weeds because you have LSA and...
It has to be marked experimental.
Yes, it does. But we also have light sport and certified light sport. So then it gets in a whole nother thing. And so light sports are now SLSA. That's the word I was looking for. So light sports, you can buy a light sport aircraft which meets certain criteria, certain horsepower, certain size ratings. You can buy it from the factory and you can have somebody build one. And you put them side by side and they're exactly identical, but they're two different rules because one was built at home and one was built in a factory. And now things get really weird. If I want to change a bolt on my airplane, I have to get an AN bolt, Army, Navy, or mil-spec bolt. You got an LSA and you need a bolt, you need to go down to Ace Hardware and get an SAE bolt because they're built to SAE standards. They're ASTM standards. So it's all goofy. So trying to stick with, what we got here on the screen. So questions?
Can AMP give the airworthiness certificate?
Nope, you cannot.
The FAA?
Airworthiness certificates are issued by the FAA.
Oh, okay.
Yep. We can lose them. Okay, we got repair stations. I briefly touched on repairmen. If you're in this class and you finish this class, get your AMP, a repairman certificate is pointless.
Unless you want to work on props.
Not even that. You're not wrong. So repairman certificate is issued through a company, or if you built your own airplane, the FAA issue a repairman certificate on your airplane.
Oh, I see.
But so let's say I go to work at a propeller shop, and either I have an AMP or I don't, and they say, we're going to issue a repairman certificate so you can work on props. Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you. I get a little card. Repairman. Oh, look at that. And then I say, you know what? I got my repairman certificate. See ya. They say, that card stays here. So, and pilots. Pilots have some benefits. Can perform preventative maintenance. But there's limits because you will never see the captain getting out of his Airbus, heading on down the stairs and changing the tire. What are you doing, man? Preventative maintenance. Tie off. You can't be a pilot and open up your own preventative maintenance shop because you can only do it on an aircraft owned and operated by that pilot. Who says FAR 43.3? So, gotta be owned, and they can't count for air taxi or charter work. They're like, hey, I'm just going to open up my own air taxi, part 135, or domestic carrier 121, foreign carrier 129. I'm just going to open up a part, my own air carrier. And what about maintenance? I do it myself. I'm pilot, owner, operator. I will do my own maintenance too. You can't do that.
What part of the FAR is that under?
Pilots can do all that. Part 43, you're pretty sure. FAR 43 .3 subsection G. Now, you're a pilot and you own your own aircraft and you just found out that you can do preventive maintenance. Where are you going to go to find a list of the things that you can do? The book? The book is correct. Which book?
FAR.
FAR. Part 43. Appendix. A. The same place that told you what a major alteration and repair was. We'll also tell you what preventative maintenance is. All right. Yes.
I'm so sorry. Up there, the 43.3. What is that? A
Golf.
G?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Let's talk about some terms, words, nomenclature. Airworthy. I want to know what the word airworthy means. Where am I going to go to look it up? FAR, part 1. God, you're idiots, man, I swear. No, I'm just kidding. You would have almost been right, and that's where I would have thought to go. So why did the FAA not put the term airworthy in 43.1 is beyond me. It should have been the first thing there, airworthy. But they didn't do it there. They put it in FAR 3.5.
What?
Yeah. I don't even know if we have part 3 in here. Now, we have 1. Oh, we do have 3. 3, general requirements. You know how often I go to part 43, FAR 3? Once, and this is it. It's somewhere in here. It's also written on an airworthiness certificate, I think. So, airworthy means, we use it in 2 contexts. One, there is the actual, when I sign off an 100-hour or sign off an annual, I have to put a statement that says, I certify that I have inspected this aircraft in accordance with, insert inspection here, annual inspection, and have determined it to be in airworthy condition. Now that airworthy has a very, that's what I'm talking about here, that is a very specific thing. Let's say that I ask you to, over there, project, you gotta take a square piece of aluminum and rivet it together. You hand that to me and I go, man, this is really nice quality work. This is airworthy. Okay, that's 2 different things. So we can use, you have to look for context clues. So if we're talking about a project, a something, then it's like, it's another way of saying, this is really nice, it's worthy of aircraft quality. It's aircraft quality. But when I use it in a statement that I've inspected something and it is airworthy and I write it in the logbooks, as such as a 100-hour or an annual, what I'm saying is that the aircraft conforms to its type design or properly altered condition and is in a condition for safe flight. So the in a condition for safe flight, self-explanatory. But what is this meets its type design or properly altered condition? That's the hard part of this inspection stuff. So you ever look at a new car and on the window it's got the sticker? Or if you're like me and you haven't bought a new car, but you can at least know what the sticker looks like. So it's got all the stuff on there. It's like, ooh, look at that. It's got this engine and that option, and got this one. And it's got the lighted ashtray, and it's got the all kinds of stuff. Well, the type certificate of an aircraft is a little similar to that, a little similar. And it's an actual FAA publication that every aircraft, certificate aircraft, is going to come with. So if I looked up my airplane, say, the one, I could just show you. I could explain it all day, couldn't I? Let me see how long will it take me to do this? know if you can see that real well because it doesn't enlarge real well. But here we go. So there. So the model 182Q Skylane 4-place land aircraft, its engine is a Continental 0470U. What if I have an R, 0470-R? That's not the right engine then. So how many options do I have? One. Fuel. I will run this fuel. Engine limits. 2,400 RPM is my red line. What if I want to run it faster? No. Okay. How many horsepower? 230. Which propeller? I have how many options? Well, that's the hub is this model. That's not 8 blades, it's -8. Blades diameter, not over that. Pitting Cessna Spitter that. Macaulay Governor that. Well, that looks like one option. The prop, the blades, the one option. Airspeed limits. Here's my airspeed limits. Let me get rid of that. There we go. Center of gravity range, empty weight, number of seats, baggage compartment, fuel capacity, oil capacity, and I'm done. So the newer airplanes don't give you a lot of information, so you have to go to a spec sheet on that. But you can see some of the major things are on there. If I go to an older plane, sometimes they list them, sometimes they don't. It's going to have everything from what size tires, which brakes. It's all, this stuff is just in a different area, but it ties into the type certificate. So an airplane has a type certificate data sheet, which has all the things it's supposed to have. And so when I do an annual inspection on an aircraft, I have to make sure that it meets its type design, right? Does it have that air filter I talked about? Does it have the right size tires with the right ply rating, with the right brakes, with the right propeller, with, it goes on and on and on. Do the control surfaces move the exact amount they're supposed to? That was in there. There. Do the wing flaps, do they go down 40 degrees plus or minus 1? Do the ailerons go up 20 plus or minus 2 and down 15 plus or minus 2? Does the elevator do this? You check all that, actually, to make sure that it is that. And if it does all of that, you make sure that the airspeed is all marked with accordance with that stuff. What else? You make sure there's a weight and balance. It matches all of that. Seats should be there. Then you have to go into, depending on the year, well, I'm just getting too much here. Anyway, gotta be its type design. Yeah.
Is there an order to checking all of this, or do you just go down the list?
No, you just do it. The way I do it is at first I go down this checklist right here, cross-check it to the aircraft. Then there's usually a section at the bottom that says pertinent to all models. Thank you for not making me a liar out of me. Pertinent to all models. Data pertinent to S and continued. But usually at the bottom, there's a pertinent to all models. And so you got to go through that. And it has all the notes. Doesn't look like this one has it on here. Check all that. Then you have to open the pilot operating handbook, and you go to the limitation section. You have to verify all the placards that are on there, and everything is printed the way it's supposed to be. So it goes on and on and on. But that's what its type design or properly altered condition means, that you've checked all of that stuff. Because what if the airplane was perfect, but instead of having that 0470, it had an IO 520 in it, totally different engine? It has to be this type design. But what if in there I found a supplement to the type certificate said, changed out the 0470 to an IO 520 in accordance with STC, SA, such and such and such, CFA Form 337 filed this date. Now I've got a properly altered airplane, so it's okay, all right? So that's a lot, and I don't mean to freak you out too much. So
a properly altered aircraft
yeah,
is,
paperwork.
but it still holds a certification.
Yep.
It does not become experimental.
Nope, it just has the proper paperwork,
Okay.
as long as you have the proper paperwork. But you can't take a certified aircraft. It's very difficult to make them experimental. I mean, it can be done, but it's not easy to do, because people would love to do that. You know, take my 170, 182, go, yeah, I just want to make it experimental. Why? So I don't have to buy certified instruments. It'd be great. I can go to the hardware store. But FAA doesn't like you to do that. So there, that's airworthy. Conforms to its type, design, or properly altered condition and is a condition for safe flight. All right. Words matter. At one point, I used the word overhaul. What's overhaul mean? What's that?
Full makeover.
Full makeover. I like that. That's a good one. Full makeover. That was a very good description. Right? If you overhaul the engine in your car, what does it mean?
Full disassembly, reassembly?
Sure. Took it apart, put it back together, painted it. Got to paint it. Otherwise, everybody goes, hey, did you really overhaul it? The FAA does not let you use that word very easily. It means you have disassembled, cleaned, inspected, repaired, reassembled, and this is where they get you. Tested. Look at everything. Disassembled, cleaned, inspected, repaired, reassembled, and tested. Where did I find that definition? Nope. FAR, definition and abbreviation, FAR 1? Page 1? No. 43.3, 43.2, 43.2, 43.2. There, I thought you said all the definitions, abbreviations were in that part. No, I lied to you. 43.2, records for overhaul and rebuilding. No person may describe in any required maintenance entry form for an aircraft, propeller, blah, 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 as being overhauled unless using methods, techniques, and practices acceptable to the administrator. Who's that? FAA. What is something acceptable to the FAA?
Manual.
Manual, the proper manual. It has, unless it has been disassembled, cleaned, inspected, repaired as necessary, and reassembled, and it has been tested in accordance with approved standards and technical data, or in accordance with current standards, technical data, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So, if I say that the engine was overhauled, that means I disassembled, cleaned, inspected, repaired, reassembled, and tested it in accordance with
The manual.
the manual. So that's where they get you, because there are way too many people out there who are really good at disassemble, clean, inspect, repair as wanted, reassembled, put it back on the airplane, and started it up, and it seemed okay. Is starting it up and seem okay a test? I mean, they wouldn't write that. They would say tested. Well, how'd you test it? Well, started it up. Seemed fine. Then I took it for a flight. Nobody died. Technically, I tested it. Did you test it correctly?
No.
Yeah, I'll get you in big, big trouble.
What is testing it correctly?
Well, you follow the manual. So, like for an engine, it could be something simple. Like I overhauled cylinders. Well, I disassemble, clean, inspect, repair as necessary, reassemble. Now, how do you test a cylinder? This is a cylinder. How do you test that when it's sitting on a bench?
Drop it on your foot.
Yes, and if it hurts, it was a real cylinder. Well, the manual says, put the valves in, pour some solvent in there. And if the solvent doesn't leak out, that's good. It's the only test they give me. So did I test it in accordance with the manual?
Yeah.
So did I overhaul it? As long as I did all those things, you bet I did. They do a magneto. They got a magneto up here. Magneto. Disassemble, clean, inspect, repair, reassemble, and I put it on a bench. And I hook up test wires and I operate it. And the book says all of them should spark before it reaches 150 RPM. And I do that. Did I test it in accordance with the book?
Yeah.
For the most part, yeah. There's more to it than that, but sure. So can I say overhauled it? Yes. What if I disassembled, cleaned, inspected, repaired, and painted it real nice? Nope. I have a couple of customers whose engines show that it has incredibly high time since an overhaul. People, I can't believe it has that much time since an overhaul. I'm like, well, it was disassembled, cleaned, inspected, repaired as necessary, and put back in the airplane. So it is not an overhaul. Now, it's not my job as a cops. If somebody writes in a book, I overhauled this engine on this date. It's in my aircraft engines. I did that. Engine overhauled this date. It was disassembled, cleaned, inspected, repaired, reassembled, and reinstalled on the aircraft. And they sign their name. Is that an overhaul?
Nope.
Well, it depends on who you're asking. If you ask the FAA, they're going to go, you didn't test it. But as somebody who has to follow up and keep track of time, if you said you overhauled it, I'm not the cops. As long as you wrote, overhauled this engine, then I just go, well, he said he overhauled it. That's between you and the FAA if you did it right. So, my engine's that way on my airplane. The factory engine only had about 400 hours on it, and they overhauled it. So I called and I said, why would you overhaul a 400-hour engine? That's like crazy. So yeah, it sat for a bunch of years and the camshaft got pitted. Had to replace the cam and lifters, so pulled the cylinders they had, so we just put on new cylinders, did all that. But we did not replace the magneto, the starter adapter, and the other thing. And I could see that they didn't test it in accordance with the manual. So was it a real overhaul? No, but they wrote in the logbook, overhaul this engine this date. So what do? I just carry the time forward. I'm like, hey, if you want to call it an overhaul, I don't care. Because as Part 91 operators, we're not required to overhaul at a certain period. So that was a little deep. All right, overhaul. I used another word in here, which was records of overhaul and rebuilding. Ooh, what is rebuilding? Same as above, but to new standards. Shame on the FAA for doing this. There are two standards. Those are your two standards. An overhaul, does it say anything about what standard? It does not say anything about what standard. Rebuilt says same to above, but to new standards. So that means that the overhaul must be to
Old standards?
serviceable standard, and rebuild is to new standards. We're going to get more into this and make more sense when we get into another module. I'll explain serviceable and new and show you charts, and you're going to be figuring this out. But it's like this. Something is made. The tube is made. And the manufacturer says it's going to be made to this size plus or minus something. And that's new, right? And we put it in service and it starts wearing, it's smaller and smaller, and take it out and measure it, and we're like, ooh, it's not new anymore, but it still measures serviceable. It hasn't reached it gets to a certain point and it's unserviceable. It's too small. Got it? Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's new, then it wears to serviceable. So you can overhaul something if everything is out of new limits. It's worn all the way into service. You can call it an overhaul. Rebuild means that everything you measures new. So I built a lot of engines. You know how many I rebuilt? None. You know how many of my engines were to new standard? Almost all of them. So why didn't I use the word rebuild? Because the average person doesn't know about rebuild in the aviation industry. So people bring you an engine. What do they want? I want a fresh overhaul. How would you like a rebuild? A what? No, I want an overhaul, man. So I built my overhauls to new limits, and I use the word overhaul. Why did I do that? Because what if one little part somewhere down all the way this line was just about serviceable? Is it a rebuild or overhaul?
Overhaul.
And now it's an overhaul, so I wasn't going to hang my butt out there for something nobody cared about. So
is rebuilding like zero timing?
No, it is not. So it is an overhaul to new standards. Everything is new standards. So what he's talking about is, we typically talk about this with engines. So an engine is born on date, comes out of the factory. It's brand new. We'd say it has 0 total time on that engine. All right? And that engine runs its lifespan. And it goes, let's say it goes to 2,400 hours. And at 2,400 hours, the owner says, it's time. I'm going to have this engine overhauled or rebuilt. So takes it off and he sends it to his favorite A&P, and his favorite A&P disassembles, clean, inspect, repairs, reassembles, and tests it in accordance with the book. that A&P did everything right. Now he's going to do a log entry. I overhauled this engine in accordance with this manual, this date, this paragraph, this revision using the following new parts and the following service bulletins and torqued it per this and did that. Goes on and on and on. And this new log entry is going to say it has 2,400 hours total time. And it has 0 since major overhaul. In 100 hours from now, he'll have 2,500 total time and 100 hours since major overhaul. And he'll keep adding up that way. And 2,400 hours later, he takes it into his favorite AMP. And he does the same thing. And now it'll have 4,800 hours total time and 0 since major. You follow what I'm doing there? Okay. This guy's got a brother. His brother says, yeah, I'm not going to let our favorite AMP do this. I'm going to send my engine back to the factory. So he takes his 2,400 hour engine, he sends it back to the factory. Factory sends him a new engine, and it's going to, I got to be careful how I do this. The factory takes the engine, they do what the factory does, they send him back the same engine, and they say, well, you've got 0 total time. Factory can do that.
Interesting.
Yeah, they can do that. So only the factory can grant 0 total time. All right, so rebuilt. Say, okay, remanufactured. That's the keyword is manufacture somewhere in there, so only the factory can use this term. What does it mean? It means whatever the hell the factory wants it to mean. They get to make up the word. They get to say what it is. It means received, pressure washed, repainted, gold plated the screws and sent it back to you and a large bill. It can mean anything they want. Let's see here. Check something. All right, I think that covers what I want to cover on that. For the most part. So, okay, so we've got, oh yeah, I can throw this one in, recondition. What does that mean? That's like remanufactured or to an A&P. I reconditioned it. What exactly does that mean? What do you want it to mean? Yeah, I took a shimmy damper off the airplane and I reconditioned it. Yeah, I washed it, I wiped it down, I put in new O-rings and I filled it full of fluid. I reconditioned it. Did I overhaul it? How come I didn't overhaul it? I disassembled it, I cleaned it, I inspected it. I didn't test it. Why didn't I test the shimmy damper? Am I too lazy? Well, why didn't I overhaul it? Let's go back. Can I overhaul a shimmy damper? That's a little thing that, it's like a little shock absorber that keeps the wheel from moving. Can't overhaul it. Why can't I overhaul it? Manual tells me how to disassemble it, clean it, tells me how to inspect it, tells me how to repair it, tells me how to reassemble it. It doesn't tell me how to test it. Well, I could argue the fact that I put it on the airplane and I went down the runway really fast and it didn't feel anymore. I tested it, didn't I? It's a test. Was it tested in accordance with approved? It was not. You laugh. That's exactly what I had to do. That's exactly how I do it. I go down the runway really fast. I make sure I put my seatbelt on and get ready to fly because if things start to go haywire, I'm just pulling back and I'm going to go around. But I guess that's the beauty of being a pilot mechanic is if things get crazy, you can leave the ground really quick. But yeah, it's when a pilot owner complains of a bad shimmy, first thing I do is just take it down the runway really fast. Go, oh yeah, that was really bad. I got to know if I fixed it. So then I do all the work. I take it down the runway really fast and go, I fixed it. I tested it, but not in accordance with new stuff. All right, rebuilding. Again, it's overhaul, but just new standards. Overhaul, you can use serviceable or new standards. This is a word. Remanufactured is only the factory. The word manufacture is in that word. Remanufacture, it's only the manufacturer. Recondition is whatever I want it to be. That's when you take something apart and paint. It's whatever you want it to be. I made it up. It's a made up word. You just use it all the time. Recondition. We could do a little bit about this. What about log entries? Log entries are going to come into 43.9 or 43.11. So 43.9 is for maintenance. 43.11 is for inspections. There are certain things that you must have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let me see. Kind of going off notes now. Make sure I don't miss something. So for maintenance, a 43.9 entry, I'm going to have the work performed. I'll do it in order here. Let me see. Description. Of work performed. Or reference to data. Recondition the shimmy damper in accordance with section 5, paragraph 4 through 11, something like that. 2, the date work was completed. Name person performing work. Work if other than person returning to service. So in other words, if you did the work and I sign it off, your name goes in the book. Signature, a person returning to service. Signature does constitute approval for return to service. Once you sign it, you're approved to service. And the A and P number. So there you go. Most people add a few things. We do the TAC or Hobbs time. TAC is the tachometer. Hobbs is an hour meter that rolls. Use one or the other. You can use both, I guess, but so you got to have all that. So what happens if somebody brings me an aircraft or they call me up and say, Kevin, man, we just got a flat tire on the runway. Can you come out here and change the tube on our tire? And I go out there and I pull off the wheel, take it in the shop, change out the tube, because airplanes have tubes, put it all back together, everything looks good. So it's sitting there on the table. I thought, I'll just do a complimentary brake check for them, and I measure the brakes, and they're below minimum. And I tell them, hey, by the way, when I looked at the brake pads on the airplane when I took it off, they're below minimum. I mean, you're almost metal on metal, and your discs are too thin. Because I didn't ask you to look at my brakes. I asked you to fix the tire. What do I do now? Below minimums.
It's your job not to let that move.
Well,
And it's in the best
Make a
interest.
comment?
Piece of fruit your own
if I do a log entry, description of work performed. Removed wheel, split wheel, change tire in accordance with, or change tube in accordance with paragraph such and such, reinstalled wheel on aircraft, torqued the brake calipers, safety, did it on this date, I did it, signature A&P. Am I in trouble?
But you're returning it to service?
I'm returning my tire to service. I'm not returning his brakes to service. Now, if he would have called up and said, I've got one bad brake pad, can you change that one bad brake pad? And I'm like, yeah, but the other one is bad and your discs are too thin. Now I'm kind of doing a brake job and I think I'm hanging myself out there. That's probably a hard example I gave you. Maybe more cut and dry for where you're at right now is he asked me to do the tire and I go, dude, your propeller is cracked. It's got a huge crack in the spinner or the prop. I mean, this is bad. You're going to lose a piece of your propeller. When that happens, you lose a piece of the propeller, even a small piece. The engine can shake so bad it'll fall out of the airplane. The airplane will back up all the way to the earth. You'd be flying like this, man. Yeah. So guy says, well, I didn't ask you to look at the prop. Okay, now we're two different sections. So, and I put the tire on. Can I sign it? Absolutely. I signed for the work that I did. Now, if I'm smart, and I'm not, I would, on the invoice or something, I would write a statement or Microsoft Word. I have inspected your aircraft. While performing work on your aircraft, I noticed that your propeller has a crack. This is a significant flight hazard, and it is likely to separate, causing you to die. Please sign this for me. That you, and I'm not going to tell the FAA. I'm, do what I want, but I need you to sign this, or I'm not signing that. I'm not doing nothing until you acknowledge that I told you this. I've been in that situation before. It's usually not adversarial. Just, hey, I noted some things. Could you just did I told you that you need to get this looked at? Because most things aren't, imminently danger, but it's not good. So do that. Let's see. If, did I go too long? I think I did. I'm sorry. We'll finish this up. So a 43.11, not 111, just plain old 11. 4311, that is our inspection entry. I would have the type of inspection. What are some types of inspections? 100 hour, annual, type of inspection, the date of inspection. That's the date you finish the inspection, not the date when the airplane's all done, ready to go. Total time. Of the component or aircraft. Let's say aircraft. Aircraft components. Just as an aside, which means you don't have to remember this. When you do an annual inspection on it, it's changed over my course of my career, but now they want you to, when you do an annual inspection, I take the airframe logbook and I put, I certify I've done this annual inspection. Then you take the engine book and you say, I certify I did a 100-hour inspection, and do the prop do is 100-hour. Because you can't do an annual inspection on an engine because it doesn't have everything in 43D, because like 43 Appendix D says you'll inspect the seatbelts. Where are the seatbelts on an engine? Doesn't have them, so you can't do an annual inspection on an engine. You can do it on an aircraft. Total time, we've also got, signature of the person who did it, because there's not somebody, you do not write the name of the person who did it, and you sign it because you cannot delegate inspections, right? Put your AMP number and the statement. Those statements. Let's see, 4311. 43. There we go. Content, form, and disposition of records for inspections conducted under Parts 91, 125, blah, blah, blah. Let me see. If inspection, signature, except for requests. If the aircraft is found to be airworthy and approved for return to service, the following or similarly worded statement. I certify that this aircraft has been inspected in accordance with, insert type, inspection and was determined to be in airworthy condition. Was determined. So. All right. That was long. Sorry. You guys need a break? Okay, break time.
I appreciate it, thanks.